All right, y'all, I am so excited about today's video. This is going to be different than anything I've done on my channel thus far. You've seen the thumbnail. I'm talking about Barbie. I'm talking about Barbie with two friends of mine from the Wheel of Time fandom, Delusions of Graendal and Siansonae. And I was so excited to talk to both of them about this movie, in particular Siansonae, and you'll see why the second the conversation starts. But yeah, we're going to talk about our thoughts about the movie and also thoughts that the movie inspired in us. And just some really interesting things came out in this conversation, so I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. I do have a sneaking suspicion that there might be some people watching this video who are not familiar with me or my channel or the Wheel of Time. We are going to reference the Wheel of Time because that's how the three of us know each other, but very, very vaguely and not very much. Like, the majority of this conversation is about Barbie. But I will put up this logo every time we are talking about the Wheel of Time, just so that, like, if you go, oh, I don't know who this character is that they're talking, if this logo is up, it's a Wheel of Time character. So there you go. As far as spoilers are concerned, we are going to, of course, spoil the entire Barbie movie, but also for Wheel of Time, very, very, very vague spoilers. I will say, if you've read as far as Lord of Chaos, you're probably safe, but very, very vague spoilers. So yeah, before we though get into the conversation, as I have been doing and will continue to do, I encourage you to support the WGA and SAG-AFTRA in their strike, in their fight to basically be able to earn a living making art like the Wheel of Time and like Barbie that enriches our lives and can inspire an hour and a half long conversations about a movie about a doll. This art is important. It makes our lives better. And so if you can, please consider donating to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation or the Entertainment Community Fund. Both links are in the description below. Both of these organizations help the actors and the writers who are currently striking and therefore not able to earn an income. And the Entertainment Community Fund helps anyone in the entertainment industry who, like people like makeup artists who can't work because all of filming is shut down. So yeah. The links to these are both in the description below, so please donate if you can, and let's get into this conversation.
Let's be nerdy with Let's Be Nerdy. Let's be nerdy with Let's Be Nerdy.
Well, I've been really excited to talk to you about Barbie because I loved the movie and I've been wanting to talk to somebody about it, and nobody here I know has seen it because I don't know if y'all know this. Barbie kind of flopped in Korea. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's been some discussion about why it flopped. Like, there's been newspaper articles about like how Koreans don't really want to be perceived as feminists because there's a whole backlash against feminism. I talked to one of my students about it, and she was like, well, no, the trailer just didn't tell us what the movie was about. And so we were all like, well, I don't want to watch a movie about a doll. So that was like, that's the perspective of at least one of my students, that's why they aren't interested in seeing this. But yeah, hey, before I continue, I'm realizing I'm doing this in very bad form. And I always do this because I get excited to talk to my friends. You should probably introduce yourselves. So, yeah, let's start with Siansonae because you are the person who I was most wanting to talk to about Barbie for reasons that I think anybody who is looking at this can probably guess. So yes,
Not a backdrop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
this is not a Zoom like this. Like, these are like real. Like, yeah.
Mhm.
So obviously, I have been collecting dolls for some time, and mostly Barbie, but like also other kinds of dolls. And this is my main hobby. Like, and one of my YouTube channels is about dolls, and I've kind of neglected it. But this is kind of what I've spent a lot of time and money on over the years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and like for audiences of my channel, you will recognize Siansonae's name because she is also a Wheel of Time fan. She is a certified troll hunter, I say. I often, will point Siansonae at like, this commenter irritated me, and then fun things happen in the comments. So, yeah.
Swah, 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 unleashed.
Yes, swah, swah, swah. Oh my
And I mean, technically, I'm a content creator because I made all those parodies. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. You make so many parodies. The amount of times like I have an idea for a parody, and you will write that and I will be asleep and I'll wake up to you like having written, I have an idea for a parody. Here's the parody. Like, that's what the sequence of events will be for me. It's like, I did not see any of the interim. It's amazing how quickly you put those together. And
Well, yeah.
and you sing so beautifully. It's wonderful. Yes. And then okay,
I
and then
mean, I can't hear Bad Romance anymore without
no.
singing No Pants.
Now that I've got no pants. Whoa, okay. And of course, Delusions.
Hey. Yes, Delusions of Graendal, co-host of the mostly absent Feather and Mountain podcast, because who knew that having a full-time job and also a hobby while raising a tiny human was possible? I am not Takaran Riyadh.
Everybody knew that was going to be difficult, it seems.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are coming back for season 2. I'm super excited. We're going to
Excellent.
start our episodes rolling next week, where we kind of debrief. My co-host is my father, so he has now read Eye of the World after
Ooh.
rewatching season 1. So we're going to debrief thoughts on Eye of the World. Of course, I'd once had grand dreams of going through episode by episode and like breaking it up that way, but life. So we're just going to kind of do one big thought on Eye of the World versus the show, changes we like, maybe didn't, and how that sets up for the following episode, which is going to be season 2 predictions from a never reader. And before we really launch hardcore into the episode breakdowns from the perspective of a veteran reader who's been reading for 24 years now, and someone who has just read Eye of the World.
Yeah, it gets alarming sometimes when you think about how long you've been reading these books. I don't know about you, but for me, like, there are times when I'm talking to someone and I realize I've been reading Wheel of Time for longer than you've been alive.
Yeah.
Stop it. Like, that is a feeling that I often have.
It's been over 3 decades for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's whatever. But okay, we are not here to talk about Wheel of Time. We are here to talk about pink sparklies and Barbie. And we have like we have very briefly talked about this, but then I realized, you know what, let's see if I want to, let's do this on camera. So, because I am a content creator, so let's make this into content. But I guess, what are your thoughts? I don't even know who to begin with. Siansonae, I feel like you would have lots of thoughts.
I do have lots of thoughts. First, I guess I should say I really liked the movie. You know, I saw it twice.
Me too.
I just wanted it to be halfway decent. Like,
Right,
you know,
right.
because obviously I have a lot invested in this IP.
No.
And I just didn't want it to suck, because like the Gem movie that came out like a few years ago was really not good.
I didn't even know there was a Gem movie, and I really like Gem. I was not really into Barbie. Gem is truly outrageous.
I dressed up as Gem in the Holograms one year for Halloween.
Yes.
Barely knew what it was, but like girl has a soft spot in my heart.
She had a star earring that was she was truly outrageous. Why did I not even know there was a movie out?
Well, because it was really a Gem movie in name only, and it was not really about Gem. It was just like, hey, we've got this IP. Let's use these names and kind of a loose idea of the concept and build a different movie about something else around that.
Right.
So like it had nothing to do with the cartoon or the dolls or the story or any of that. It just borrowed some names.
Well, that's unfortunate.
That was it. And so I was going into this Barbie movie kind of with that as my baseline. Like, just don't be that. And it wasn't that. And I was very pleased that it took the subject matter as seriously as you can, because this, I mean, it's a child's toy.
Yeah.
You know, but they were actually respectful to it, and they treated it with kindness, you know, and like, because that was kind of always my experience growing up with Barbie. I know Barbie has problematic qualities, and I don't want to take away from that. But for me, it was always just about the aesthetic, the creativity of the dolls. Like, I always enjoyed the aspect of taking old dolls and like fixing them, you know, so that they can talk again, you know, and just like, you know, things like that. Like, I was always inspired to like become a crafter, essentially.
Yeah.
To like restore dolls and to like stage them beautifully, things like that. You know, I love the aesthetic, and like I didn't really think about any of the anything beyond that. And
Beyond,
I
yeah,
still love
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Do you have video
So-
screen Barbie?
No, I don't.
No.
Another
All
one
of-
to add to the list.
Yes.
Well, all of this stuff you see here is
Mm.
from like the late 70s and the early
Right,
80s.
right, right. Yeah. I know that's
So,
your
like,
era. Like that's the era that
Yeah,
you really are.
that's the wheelhouse. Well, because that's when I was a kid, you know,
Right,
and
right, right.
like, and I even have some of my childhood dolls with me, like my weird Barbie.
Oh, I love your weird Barbie.
Yeah, my weird Barbie. I could restore this doll
Mhm.
to look perfect, but I have like 1983 Dream Date Barbie many times over up on my shelves in perfect condition.
Mhm.
But like this is the one I had as a child, and she's my weird Barbie that I'm not going to fix, and I'm going to leave her the way she was
Of
because
course.
of nostalgia.
Of course.
You
Of
know.
course.
As for the movie, I didn't cry, which surprises me
Mm.
because I cried everything. I cried at Mars Attacks. I mean,
it is a heartbreaking film.
and it is, but for whatever reason, I didn't cry.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was like, huh, that's weird. I appreciated everything it tried to do except for a couple of things.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. I think of the movies I've seen recently, I this is the adjective I keep thinking in my head. It's the stickiest movie for me. Like it's the movie that I found myself thinking about. Like I came out of Indiana Jones. I think I said this to you, Shans. I came out of Indiana Jones. One of my friends here is a huge Indiana Jones fan. And I came out of it with this thought of, oh, I think I had a pleasant experience. And like that's the end of I haven't thought about it again. Whereas
Me
Barbie
either.
has stuck in my head. Like
and so has Oppenheimer for me. I know both of you
Yeah.
haven't seen it.
it's not
but
out in
yeah.
Korea yet. It's not out in Korea. And I saw Barbie alone. I'm gonna have to see Barbie or Oppenheimer alone too, because I've tried to get people to go with me, and when they ask me what it's about, I don't think I've ever heard people say no faster. They've just been like,
Like,
yeah,
"Ooh,
no.
No.
Yeah. So
Well, after you've both seen it, maybe we should have another discussion about that movie.
ooh, okay,
Perfect. I will talk to you in 4 years.
What, you don't have you mother of a young toddler child and full-time employee don't have time for a 3-hour movie?
Barbie was the first movie I saw in theaters since 2019.
Oh my gosh.
Like
Wow.
I was so hyped for this movie,
Mm.
and I was home visiting family for like 5 weeks this summer, and I'd said to my mom when I knew like Barbie release date, I said, okay, I need to take you for Barbie on your birthday.
Mhm.
And my mom was like, I'm not a Barbie girl. And I was like, come on, Barbie, let's go party. And I like begged her to come with me because I had said to her, I'm like, this is not about the girls who grew up playing with Barbies.
Mm.
It's not just for them. This is not just for the Barbie like fans. This is for everyone who is, just a member of society.
Yeah.
And I think you'll really enjoy it. So that is, it's the first movie that has made me need to go to the theater like during the release
Mhm.
to drive that revenue up, hitting that over $1 billion. Let's
Over
go,
a
G.
billion. Yeah.
$1 billion Barbie.
Yeah.
$1 billion Bobby.
Mhm.
So it was the first thing that like really drove me honestly from the couch, and
Mm.
like I could not wait months to see this movie. I
Yeah.
had to see it when it was released. So no regrets, no ragrats.
Yeah. No regrets.
It,
Yeah.
it exceeded and met my expectations in every way. I mean, Greta Gerwig, you know exactly what you're
Mhm.
getting. Kate McKinnon, you know what you're getting. Will Ferrell, you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
With Margot Robbie, I
She
had
did.
no doubt that she would be perfection.
Mm.
I didn't know how much
She
perfection.
was perfect.
and-
Yeah.
Like flawless and amazing. And I love, the little voiceover nod to her there.
Mhm.
By Helen Mirren, but it was America Ferrera for me that really broke me.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of myself in obviously that speech, because it
Of
was a
course.
speech to I think anyone who goes through that, but also just the struggle with Barbie
Mhm.
and kind of identifying with Barbie. And I saw that in the scene in the like with the high school kids too, because
Yeah.
I was not a fan of Barbie growing up. I was a My Little Pony kid.
Right.
I maybe had 2 Barbies, but they were mostly props for the horses, and I think most of the time they were naked. Um,
See, yeah,
like my big
I was gonna say I also have a bit of a like I have a bit of a conflicted history with Barbie as well because people kept giving me Barbies. I grew up with people giving me Barbies, and I wanted the boy toys, and nobody would ever give them to me. So I always had like all of my Barbies ended up being weird Barbie because I don't know what to do with them. I'm just gonna cut their hair and then they go under the bed.
Give me G.I. Joe.
Yeah, like that was what it was. Like I was just a little queer kid who desperately wanted trucks. Like I used to like go to the park and then I would see little boys playing with their toys and then like they would leave one little of their cars and I would steal them because that was the only way I got the toys that I wanted to play with. Nobody would give them to me. So
See, I grew up with brothers, so I was never denied the
Yeah.
boy toys. And like it was weird to bring girl toys into the house, which is why it was basically just My Little Pony. And,
Right.
like
right.
whatever. So maybe people left the Barbies at like I don't know how they got there or where they've gone.
Mm.
But like my biggest association with Barbie is honestly Aqua.
Yes. You started at WalkCon, you sang me a lot of Aqua. I
Mhm.
thought they had the one song. Turns out they had an album that Delusions knows off by heart.
All the words. Candyman. Can't say enough good things. But I mean that album came out when I was in grade 4, so I was like 9 years old, and so it was like peak Barbie time, right? Like
Right.
you're
Right.
just hitting that crescendo, and I like decided, yeah, like honestly, F Barbie, because I think the fact came out at that point too, or like, the internet was just becoming a thing, and it was how if Barbie was a real person, she wouldn't be able to stand
Stand up.
because her
Yeah.
boobs are too big and her feet are too small and like her thighs and all of this. So I really rebelled against the idea of Barbie and like this societal expectation that we're supposed to have like these tiny little hips, but still an ass, thigh gap, huge boobs, and like just be petite and perfect in every way
Mhm.
while still maintaining like a full job. I never really saw the feminism in Barbie. And now watching the movie,
Yeah.
I was like, dang,
Yeah, like
I really did miss out on a lot of that, huh?
yeah. The marketing for the movie, I have to say, the marketing hit me because it was like, if you loved Barbie, you'll like this movie. If you hated Barbie, you'll like this movie. And I was like, I was just a person who was constantly having Barbies thrown at me, and I didn't want Barbies. And I'm just like the marketing worked for me. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what they do with this. And then of course the humor in it, the marketing also really, really hit me. So
The self-effacing, like the fact that Mattel backed this movie and then
Mhm.
absolutely sewered themselves. Like I know we can get into like the Mattel storyline in general.
Mhm.
I loved it. It really worked for me.
Okay.
In large part because they just like repeatedly were making fun of themselves.
Yeah.
Like they've only had 2 women CEOs. They've only like it's like basically a bunch of men dictating like what female expectations are and what women should be doing and how women should be looking and dressing and like what careers they should be in and all of these things. I just really enjoyed the levity of that and
Okay, yeah.
the very much like the physical comedy behind it because it is such an absurd concept, and I really appreciated that Greta opted to pair that with like absurd comedy.
Right.
Something so far from reasonable and rational that we should treat it as a joke, which is honestly what I took away from like how we should view corporations like this, because it is a joke.
Right. Okay. And then
I didn't love it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I know you have different thoughts on that, Siansonae, so let me hear your thoughts.
I appreciated it on the level of the comedy and everything, but I just felt like that whole plot line just kind of took away from what I thought was the core of the movie, which was Barbie and Ken
Right.
and Gloria and Sasha.
Right.
Because like I feel like we didn't really get enough depth from especially Gloria and Sasha. Like they had great moments when they were on screen, but for me, I never really understood why Gloria had such a profound, negative experience that it affected Barbie in Barbie Land. Like because it just seemed like she was mostly happy in her life, and she was just having a little bit of an awkward stage with Sasha. and that was really the end of it. You know,
Yeah.
like there didn't seem to be anything like really just meaningful and profound going on with her that was resolved through her
Through Barbie.
interacting with Barbie. And I felt like Ken's storyline didn't really get the ending that it maybe could have. And I also just felt like every time we were with the Mattel executives, it was bizarre and unrealistic in the same way that Barbie Land was bizarre and unrealistic. Whereas every time Ken was out in the real world, like trying to get a job, he was dealing with people,
Real
and
people.
it was a realistic
Yeah.
experience, because everybody was like, you're a crazy person, you should leave. You know,
Yeah.
whereas with the Mattel, it's just like the tone just felt inconsistent to me.
Huh.
And also it just, to me, that whole storyline kind of begs the question of like, okay, well, now we have to talk about capitalism. Now we have to talk about corporatism. And just because you're hanging a lampshade on it doesn't make it okay. You know what I mean? Like, we still have to have this conversation, which we would not have to have to the same extent if that had just been just in the background. Like if we hadn't,
Had
and
that
then there's
happening,
well, and there's the logistical thing, like, because I got stuck on the point where, Barbie comes into the real world. The executives want to get her back to Barbie Land, and then she goes back to Barbie Land.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, problem solved. You know, Ken's gone back too. So like, why did they go into Barbie Land after her? Like, what was the point of that?
Right.
And also, like, where were they during the events of like the push song and all of that, where like the Barbies were like doing their little heist to deprogram all the other Barbies? You know what I mean? It's like they were just like in Barbie Land, hanging out somewhere, I guess in the Skipper treehouse or whatever, for that whole time, which was like a day, maybe.
Yeah. I didn't get stuck in any of that. What bothered me, not, and I shouldn't say bothered, but like it was when you mentioned it, I realized that I had been expecting some sort of resolution from the Mattel storyline. Like, okay, it's a bunch of men in a room and they're the one. I was expecting like America, what was her character?
Gloria. Yeah.
I just, she's America for, I have a bit of a crush on America Ferrera, so she's America Ferrera. Anyway, it was just her. I was expecting her to get maybe promoted to the board or something. And then when that didn't happen, my brain kind of like, until you mentioned it, the Mattel storyline, my brain kind of erased it. It was like, that was just a thing that was happening because it didn't have a resolution. I was talking about the movie just briefly with Nablus and Jess, my co-host on the Tarvalin After Dark podcast. And I made I had a realization while talking to them, because one of the things that, like, I know some people have a critique of the movie, like some of the men who are angry about Barbie have a critique of, I know, it's shocking, is that, like, the Kens don't get equality at the end. The Kens get some, like, their level
intentionally.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. And so then I was like, that's what it is. It's that the balance hasn't been restored in Barbie Land because the balance doesn't exist in the real world. So that's why I think that resolution didn't happen, because Barbie didn't fix the real world. Like, that didn't actually happen.
And they're not people.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Like, one of the criticism I saw of the movie was that they were presenting Barbie Land as perfect, as a matriarchy and against men. It's like, it's not, though.
No,
like, it's not being presented as anything other than like a fantasy, an idea. And like, it's all being controlled by Mattel, you know? So like, it's still a product of patriarchy.
Yeah.
And it's still like, no one there is a person. They're an idea. And the whole point of this movie is that this stereotypical Barbie is an idea that no longer really has a purpose. And like, so now she needs to become something more than she was.
Right.
You know, and like, she takes her first breath, and stereotypical Barbie no longer exists as an idea, and she now exists as a person.
Right.
You know, whereas all of those Barbies in Barbie Land are still just ideas, like including Ken, you know? So like, yeah, their world is still an imperfect reflection, you know, and like I was thinking about it, it's like they have food that gives no nourishment.
Yeah.
They have awards that don't mean anything,
Mhm.
and a bunch of activity that has no purpose, you know.
You
So
know,
it's like
jobs like beach.
Beach.
yeah,
Yes. I
I
beach
just
really well.
beach.
I am so good at beach. I'm hoping
People
to be
think I'm a
beaching soon.
lifeguard, but it's just beach.
It's just
It's just
beach.
beach.
It's just
It's all
beach.
beach.
Yes.
Yeah, I will say one thing that I really like in books and
Mm.
in movies, like ones that become my favorites, are the books and movies without resolution, because it
Mm.
means you think about them long after the fact,
Yep.
right? Like it means that, I mean, if we're back to Wheel of Time, that we spend
Mm.
decades thinking
Yeah.
about what could be after.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And with this, like, I like that Mattel doesn't have a resolution,
Yeah.
because it doesn't have a resolution in the real world. And to me, it would have felt cheap if America Ferrera had been appointed to CEO.
Right.
I mean, I
Yeah.
would love that for her. And I really hope that she, continues to apply for jobs, but it would have cheapened it in my mind, because that's not how the world works. And with like Gloria and Sasha's relationship, again, Chance, I think I have a different perspective from you on that, because I didn't want them to spend more time on Gloria and Sasha and establishing a relationship that, to me, I think is something easily relatable.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't need to understand a 12-year-old's angst or what that does to a mother who has sacrificed her career, sacrificed opportunity, likely been the primary homemaker, likely been largely responsible for childcare to the detriment of her own career advancement, and then having all of that identity start to be subsumed and honestly replaced when her child starts gaining independence. It felt so realistic to me that she would be struggling with these questions of what am I, who am I, what's my value, and constantly musing on things, reflecting on things they used to do together, like Barbie. Like, don't throw that out, because it triggers that nostalgia piece within mom.
Yeah.
So to me, Gloria and Sasha, I was like, I don't need that all explained. I've seen it 100 times. I've read it 100 times. I've lived it myself, like from the perspective
the
of
child.
Sasha.
I was gonna say, not
And
with your child. Your child's not old
Yeah,
enough
like,
for that yet.
you know,
yeah.
in a decade or so, I'll be going through that, like with my own kid. So I really appreciated that Greta likely recognized that it was something that we didn't need a full explanation on, and that Gloria's speech will later harken back to, like, what is it that gets her in these thoughts? And it honestly is just sometimes existing as a woman in society, and how exhausting it can be.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Like, that's her outlet, was like coloring and drawing, and she found some way to express herself from the sheer exhaustion of carrying the world and these responsibilities on her shoulder. And so I did appreciate that, instead of like just throwing those concepts at us as the audience, there was the weird, quirky Mattel chase through the building, which is like, and getting Barbie in the box, following Barbie because they took humans with them into Barbie land, and that could change everything. Like, all of it made sense to me. And like the fact that we just kind of forgot about Mattel, I'm sure I could think of like why that is and why we didn't flash back to them, but I think it's because they're immaterial. They're real concepts and real people within a world of ideas, and they just don't fit. So like, who cares what they're doing?
Right. I know. I think I said this to you as well. The Gloria Sasha thing, it hit me, I think, just at the perfect time, because literally the day before, or maybe a couple of days before, one of my good friends, like I'd been over at her house, and she was like, "You're so lucky. You don't have kids." I'm like, her one of her children is going through something, and it was causing her a lot of stress, and like, she's like, what she said to me, "You only have to care about yourself. I have to look after my children and my husband." And like, it was a whole, like, she wasn't being bitter or angry at me. It was just this, I could see what she was going through, and just a lot of anxiety and of being a parent. And then when I saw the movie, I immediately just was like, oh yeah, I know what that is. I'm watching one of my friends go through this right now. What did you take away from the movie?
I think sometimes as a type A and as someone who is in a field that's typically male dominated, and raising a tiny human with a partner who that partner has taken on more of the responsibilities of like housework and things, which is unusual, right? Like it's not the norm. I don't do the cooking or cleaning. I don't do the majority of pickups or drop-offs from daycare. It can feel very isolating being in a world like that, where you are expected to be perfect, and the standards that are applied to you are different than are applied to men. Like it's considered amazing that my partner does, let's say, 50 to 60% of the which is great.
Oh, it is.
But is it remarkable? Do we constantly need to like herald his achievements when like we do the same?
Yeah.
It's the same, but
Yeah.
because he's a man, it's different. So it can feel very isolating and draining. And one thing I really loved that Gloria said in her speech was, you're supposed to want to be a mom, but you're not supposed to talk about your kids all the time. And that like resonated so deeply with me. Like, this is probably the most amount of time I think I've spent, certainly in the YouTube sphere, like actually referencing my tiny human. Because yeah, like it's great that I evicted a crotch goblin, but that's it. Like it's about other things. Other things are, I'm still a full person. I still have a full life, and that full life, like it's the child is a compartment in it. My job is a compartment in it. My workout, like my fitness is a compartment in it, but you have to do everything. You have to be perfect. And it was so nice to have someone articulate that feeling of isolation, and to really know how much, like watching reactions from people, talking with you guys, seeing like how that speech has genuinely impacted every woman. It just like feels really cool, and a gentle reminder that like we're not alone in this. Nothing's perfect, and it's okay to laugh about it sometimes, and it's okay to recognize that like even though I come from a place of extreme privilege and opportunity, like it's okay to still have a little bit of like struggle and discontent, and to go through like frustration with the system and what we're, feminizing against.
Feminizing. I will, like, speaking of the different standards, as someone who works in childcare, I've seen it. I've been on the like other end of that, where like a dad comes to pick up their kid, and all of the teachers, myself included, would be like, "Oh, what a wonderful day." None of us would say that about the moms. Like, and it like, oh, the stuff that I remember, one child, the mom left, and so there was a single dad. And the amount of effort and things that we did to try and help him. And he needed it. Like, he had 5 kids. 5. That was a lot of, yeah. But there were several single moms that came to the preschool that we didn't do that. And at a certain point, like I think a couple of months in, I mentioned that, and it got, but we ended up discussing it and realizing, A, we can't afford to help all of them because there are way more single moms than single dads, turns out. And so we have to pull back, because we can't, it's not fair that we're helping one without helping the, like, it was this horrible thing of just, okay, if we can't help all of them, then we have to, but this realization that it was not fair. Like the standards are kind of on the floor, or they're below the floor for men. Like it's, yeah.
Yeah. Showing up at all, you get a gold star.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Which is kind of infantilizing to men in a lot of ways.
Very.
Yes.
It is very, like, it's demeaning to men to say that, like, just the example that I can think of, like a child would come with their hair looking kind of messy in like a messy ponytail. And if it was a single dad, be like, oh, he tried. If it was a single mom, he'd be like, oh my gosh, she must, like, why can't she do her kid's hair? That would be like, why is like
in the field that I work in, the question that often comes up to me when I have conversations with women, and speaking about, when dads get parenting time with their kids, the question I hear more than I ever thought I would is, how do I know he's going to be able to take care of the children?
Yeah.
Ma'am, ma'am, he is a 41-year-old man who has also raised them with you. And like when you pushed that thing or had it cut open or had it brought into your life in some other way, when that thing was presented in your life, how did you know that you were going to be able to do it?
Yeah.
Because you're a fucking adult. And it's just so wild to me that people, and like women especially, like the problem with patriarchy is not just rooted in the men.
It's this
in
it's
our entire
societal. Yeah.
society, and it's like this internalized misogyny and the thoughts that we all have. And it's so frustrating when I hear those thoughts that like a man couldn't possibly be capable of caring for a child alone. Give them a shot.
Mhm.
Just let people try, and like let the expectation be that like they should have the same level of care as you do. And it is truly my biggest pet peeve in this world. There is no, maybe this is a hot take. I don't believe that there's maternal instinct. I don't believe it. I think that there is a bond that's created if you're growing that thing within you. And then I think there's a lot of society pushing this concept on you that you are supposed to know what your child wants, that you and only you can predict their needs, that you and only you can provide for their needs. And that is what fuels this feeling within women and expectation that like I must be the primary caregiver because no one else is possibly as competent as I am to understand what my child needs. Whereas like if you just allow a child to be exposed to the other parent just as much, they too will learn the cues. Like the instinct is not innate. It is something that's developed and learned. And so we need to let people learn. And I appreciate that this isn't just about Barbie and it's mostly a rant about society, but it truly is like such a frustration.
Yeah.
But I think that that's one of the things about the movie that's great is that it causes people to have these conversations, you know, like, because like, I think the movie has a lot to say about how patriarchy is harmful to men and women, you know, and Ken's whole story, you know, and how like he doesn't feel like he has a place, you know, like none of the Kens feel like they really have a role, that they don't have anything except what the Barbies give them.
Right.
You know, and like, and Ken's like, we're supposed to empathize, like people will say like, you know, I know this movie's about Barbie, but I really identified with Ken and all that. It's like, well, you're supposed
to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the whole point. Because
Ken is the object.
Yes, he's yeah.
The Kens are having the woman experience in Barbie Land.
Yeah.
Like they're marginalized, they're ignored, you know, they're taken for granted. They aren't appreciated for who they are. You know, all of the things that have historically been a byproduct of patriarchy in our world are a byproduct of the matriarchy of Barbie Land, you know, which is not presented as a utopia.
No.
You know, and the whole thing with the corporate aspect of it, it's like, you know, they return to the status quo of, you know, women on top, you know, in Barbie Land, but then that's still,
The case,
I mean, it's still capitalism, it's still corporatism, it's still a product, you know, like that's why that whole storyline just kind of felt a little like we needed to explore that in its own movie because it's such a bigger conversation that like I just feel like kind of wink wink nudge nudge haha capitalism, like, you know, it just felt a little glib to me, you know, just kind of the way it was handled, kind of the way it was just like lampshaded and like we know we're just a bunch of men, you know, and like I just felt like because we were dealing with so many other heavy things, kind of like not dealing with that other heavy thing, it just was like that's just a little bit of a sour note, but not enough to where I hated it or anything that. It was just like, you know,
is interesting because when you met, like, again, we talked about this briefly in like DMs prior to this. When you mentioned that Delusions, you mentioned another movie that I have since seen about the beanie. What's it called? The beanie.
Oh yeah, the Beanie Boom?
Beanie
What was
Boom
it?
or Beanie Bust or something, which I think might satisfy that itch on for you, Shanson, because it does sort of explore it from like it's
Yeah,
a it's
I have
a
not seen it.
yeah
The Beanie Bubble.
the Beanie Bubble. There you go.
The Beanie Bubble.
Yeah, and it is an interesting companion piece. I know you want to like talk about Oppenheimer, which we can't because I haven't seen it like as a companion piece to Barbie. The Beanie Bubble I think is also an interesting companion piece because it is like it's a real world story. I don't know how true it is, but it is talking about capitalism and patriarchy from a real world perspective in the toy industry. Like it's an interesting,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So
Well, and like as much as I love Barbie, as much as I love all of this stuff, it's like, you know, that's a conversation worth having.
Mhm.
Like, you know, this has been a great movie. It's been very empowering. But, you know, as far as Mattel's concerned, the only thing that matters
is money, of course. Yeah,
is that people buy these.
yeah.
And either play with them like me or light them on fire like Ben Shapiro. They get the same $25
So
no matter what.
those kind of boycotts crack me up. Like
Oh my
I'm going
God, I
to
love 'em.
boycott this by buying it.
Yeah.
Buy it up, baby.
Yeah. You want to
One
set it on
thing-
fire? Go for it. Yeah.
I don't know if this is true. I saw it on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. I saw it on Twitter. I'm hoping it isn't. I didn't actually Google because I was so sad if this is true. But I heard that Mattel was releasing the weird Barbie from the movie.
Yes, they are.
Oh,
And I was like, that just to me, I was like, this is why America Ferrera wasn't just like CEO at the end because
Yeah.
nothing changed. Because Weird Barbie is so weird, is so special because she's not created by an industry. She's not created by capitalism. She's created by you, the consumer. She becomes weird and individually weird to each person who buys
yes.
her.
I was gonna say it's unique. Weird Barbie is supposed to be unique to every person who makes
So
a weird
unique.
Barbie.
And now she has a price tag attached to her. And I was like,
Yep,
this
it's
isn't it. Like, this is just so, you had this opportunity and you so missed the mark on it. Like,
What's weird to me is like, you know, Mattel is very careful not to toot their own horn when they should. And like they respond to criticism and they've always been good at responding to criticism. But like they don't really get credit when they do the right thing.
right.
So when this movie kind of just like didn't address, I guess they kind of did, but not really. Like, because like the body type diversity that Mattel came out with like over the last few years, everyone's like, well, finally, you know, it's like, well, I mean, Mattel's been trying to increase the diversity of the dolls since 1966. You know what I mean? Like 2 years after the civil rights movement was signed into law, like they were bringing Black dolls to market and they were introducing them and they made mistakes. They had missteps and things like that. So like they did a lot of things that like other companies, they were taking risks, you know, when other companies weren't, you know, and I just feel like they kind of don't get credit for that. But that's also the Ruth Handler era. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And the Charlotte Johnson era and the Joyce Clark and the Carol Spencer era. Like
You're saying I know one of those names from the movie. The rest of them I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, Mattel used to have a lot of women in positions of power in the 60s and 70s. And again, in the 90s, they had Jill Barad, you know, but like this whole male dominated Mattel thing is a relatively new phenomenon, you know? So like all of this early stuff, like, you know, this kind of thing, this was, you know, Ruth Handler, you know, she
Right.
was the one who was, you know, doing the, like, this is a doll from 1970. You know,
can tell that's a nice 70s outfit there.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mattel was always trying to do innovative things, and they were always trying to like the first Black Barbie was in 1980, the first Hispanic Barbie was in 1980, like, but I don't know where I'm going with this, but like for Mattel to kind of just be the way they were in the movie, just this kind of like evil empire, it's not fair to the history of Mattel in that way, kind of,
okay.
even though there's some complicated stuff there too.
Yeah.
But like it was played for laughs, and like it doesn't really start a conversation about what really happened, I guess, is my takeaway from that.
Okay. That, I guess, I will ask you then the question, like I asked Delusion, what did you take away from the movie just in like overall?
For me, the whole point of the movie was that the idea of Barbie has to change because times have changed. And the idea that everyone has of when you think of a Barbie, what do you think of? That no longer serves a purpose, you know, because like every time we see Margot Robbie's Barbie on screen, she is in a beautiful outfit, sitting in the audience, watching some other doll do something amazing. You know, like she's never doing the amazing thing. So
you're right.
she's,
Oh my gosh, you're right. Yeah.
you know what I mean? So like, this is not what Barbie should be going forward. Like Barbie should be everything, you know, and honestly, that's something that has always been my takeaway too, because like from the time Barbie began, she wasn't just this blonde girl. She was also a brunette girl. You know what I mean? It's like there was never just one Barbie. There was always multiple Barbies. There was always a different version of Barbie for whatever you wanted your Barbie to be. And the idea of blonde Barbie didn't really take root until the early 70s with the advent of Malibu Barbie. And then suddenly Malibu Barbie was such a massive success that every Barbie after that was a blonde.
Okay.
And that's where stereotypical Barbie basically started. But these earlier dolls, like this one is brunette, like you could get this doll in red hair or blonde or brunette, like whatever you wanted, you know, and the friends were available in different hairstyles. And like, there was a range of different, you know, characters and whatnot. But like, so that is where that idea of stereotypical Barbie started. But now we're at the end of that idea.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, it was less about kind of what Gloria was talking about, because I had kind of already had that kind of epiphany that this is a trap. Like this idea of like, you must do all of these things. It's like, I had rejected that already. I was always like, you know what? People are going to judge me no matter what I do. So I'm just going to do what I like to do. I'm going to enjoy my life. And that way, if they're judging me, at least they're judging me on what I actually want to do.
Right.
And not what I think is going to get me not judged, because that's a fantasy. Like that's never going to happen. So like, judge me for all of this, judge me for, you know, being a salty sea witch, but like, you know what I mean? It's like, because I mean, it was impactful and it was meaningful when I heard it, but I was like, yeah, this is the kind of stuff that I decided a long time ago. I was not gonna go down that road. I was not gonna be like consumed with other people's expectations of what I should be, how I should behave, all of that. You know, I was just like, but you know, I can still appreciate like a lot of people do need to hear that. Like it is okay to just be who you are and not who you think other people will like better than who you are.
Yeah. I read a post on Reddit about someone who took their mom to see Barbie, and like their mom, it was in one of my favorite subreddits, which is the Today I Fucked Up subreddit, where people just post like, today this is a fuck up I made, and it was like, today I fucked up by taking my mom to see Barbie. And basically the post was, I took my mom to see Barbie thinking it would be fun, and she hasn't stopped crying since. Like she's just been like that. Yeah. Like that speech apparently is hitting, like it hit me. I think I'm like sort of in between the two of you, because it didn't like, you know, there isn't one thing from that line, like that speech, that made me go, oh, but it wasn't like something that I think I'm beyond. It was the whole feel of what we're expected to be versus what we're expected to put out. Like we're expected to be perceived a certain way, and to be something more than what we're perceived. But that I don't know. I want to watch it again.
But to also be humble about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like to me, like that speech is more like, yeah, you know, like it gets me more like jazzed and like,
right.
Rather than like feeling emotional about it, because it's like, yeah, that's bullshit. and we should all reject this like wholeheartedly.
And I think it's easy to say, because like, I mean, of course I'm living my life exactly as I want, and it's very different than what society would expect, and that's great. So it's not so much that like, but it's also, I think, the masking, if I can use that without appropriating the term, but like masking that you do in different social groups, right? Like in groups with where there's moms, like I'll talk about my tiny human. In groups where there's no kids, I don't. And I really like, I'll pull back, and I pull back, I think, a little bit of myself. And it's not because it's like necessarily what society, but it really is. It's because like this thing that's going on in my life is like I there's just this perception, and I know I have it too. I know I have this internalized so bad, but I really, and like I'm working my way through it, but like it really upsets me when people choose to put everything and everyone ahead of themselves and their wants and their needs. And it's a choice, and I know that it's a choice. And when people choose, for example, to give up careers and be homemakers, it is, I think, one of the biggest sacrifices that you can possibly make. And I feel like a bad person because I know there's a little bit of judgment within me when people choose that route, because I feel like they are letting me down by not upholding these expectations that we are supposed to have a career. Like, we're supposed to have it all. We're supposed to have a career. We're supposed to have a family. We're supposed to be able to do everything. And when someone chooses either to go full guns a-blazing into their career, for some reason I have a lot more, I hate to call it respect, but I really do, because I, in this skewed up, fucked up way, like in my brain, I feel like that's the way to take down the patriarchy,
Right?
Is to like go after it without realizing, sometimes to pursue that career that you're giving in, and you're just living by the same standards and ideals as like the cishet white men that like dictate everything. I'm trying to unlearn, and I'm trying to do better. And like, that's what really resonated with the speech for me, is like, I have still so much unlearning and unpacking and deconstruction to do about my own standards, not just for myself, but like how I view other women in society, and the respect that I really truly need to give women for the choices that they make, even if I think that it's not what I would do, but it's also freedom of choice within a structure that doesn't always support that freedom.
Yeah. I to bring it back to Wheel of Time, this is a thing that I have had when I first encountered the online Wheel of Time fandom was the first time I heard people say, oh, Robert Jordan wrote a matriarchal world. And I was like, what? And one of the reasons that I had for that is, in a matriarchal world, the labor that women do would be respected. It wouldn't, and that is a thing that happens in the real world all the time, is women do. They just proportionally, statistically, women are the ones who tend to give up their careers to look after the children. And it is unpaid labor. Like it is as valid. And I, as a person, like, one of my personal philosophies, I said this in a recent video, but I don't know what video, but whatever. One of my personal philosophies in life, and I think this is just because I work with kids, but I think as an adult, our main function is to take care of children. Like, that is, evolutionarily speaking, we are supposed to protect the next generation. Like, that is what we are supposed to do. And that is one of my main, like, it's a guiding principle that I live by, is children should be protected. We need to keep kids safe. And the fact that women bear most of that burden, and it is uncompensated, it is uncredited, it is not
undervalued.
It is undervalued. Like, and that women are punished for doing it. You're punished for thinking about it. You're punished for talking about it. You're punished for financially, for like, you're punished for doing what, in my opinion, is one of the most important jobs. And I have the same, like, that the Wheel of Time can't be a matriarchal world, because women would be respected for doing that. They wouldn't be considered, like, men would be trying to do it, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like, men would be doing that labor or be wanting to do that labor because it would be considered high status. And
The invisible labor would become visible.
would become visible and would be respected and talked about as labor, not as, oh, she's a housewife. She's just doing like, and
Oh, he's a single father. What an amazing person.
yeah, yeah, like that's, yeah. So it
When a
is
man is doing it, even if it's the same thing, suddenly it's amazing.
suddenly it's work. Yeah. And suddenly the work that it is valued because, oh, we are suddenly realizing how important that work is when a man is doing it. It's, I mean, we saw that, like, well, I'm saying I as a history nerd, like you saw that happen, for example, with medical, especially in the Western world, medical things used to mostly be in the vein of women. Women were the nurturers and women did most of the caring, and it wasn't a profession. But the minute it became a profession, men took it over. Like the minute it became something that you had to be educated and you had to, like, women weren't allowed to do it anymore. And it's a thing that happens repeatedly in history.
Men are chefs, women are cooks.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so that's going far afield, but it like that's one of the things, like we all have to unlearn patriarchy. We all do. Like all of us have things in our life where, and I can't think. There's something I had recently where I can't think of it right now because you can never think of things off the top of your head. But I had a moment recently where I went, oh, that's me. Like that's me in patriarchy. That's not okay.
And we all have it.
Yes, yes. Like it lives in our brains and it's what we grew up. It's seeped into our skin. Like it's.
I mean, I definitely grew up in the era of like not being like all the other girls, right? And like, not that I fully bought into this idea that you shouldn't have girlfriends, but like because I did. I had great girlfriends growing up, but like I always did like identify it with a lot of the guys because it felt hard to be a woman who was intelligent, so got good grades in school, had ambition for a career, athletic, and you know, kind of like, God, I'm pumping my own tires, but like kind of naturally, like louder, obnoxious, if you will, an extrovert.
No, you're not loud.
Assertive.
No, you don't knock
Assertive.
people over.
Yeah.
Literally.
Who would do that?
No.
You know, like taller and like I have a presence and I'm not shy. There's confidence. And that is not necessarily that's not necessarily desirable. And so like as a mate, I'll say in like the 2000s, 2010s, it's a lot, like, because you're basically, you know, I'm coming into the world basically saying like I'm as good as you. And for like it's not a romantic partner that's often perceived that way, which I think is kind of a downfall, and I hope that's changing. But like it was definitely perceived on an equal level as friendship, which was great. So I did have a lot of like close guy friends, but it was very different. So I felt like I was like one of the guys, and that's something that because of that I have to unlearn a lot of what I took on to kind of mask myself in that role.
Right.
Like what it means to be one of the guys, what that means you say about other women, what that means how you view other women, especially, you know, women who give up careers and make a really, really, really hard choice to stay at home. And the sacrifice that goes along with that and the invisible labor and everything else. It's really, I don't know if I'll ever fully be able to like unpack and unlearn things that that I picked up in like, let's say a 10-year, 15-year span. Like it is daunting how much that continues to impact me. And I hope that a movie like Barbie does have some awakening. I hope that like it sparks a conversation. I know in high school I studied film, in university I studied some film classes, and I hope Barbie can start those conversations, like in media class in grade 11, that they start talking about it, that they start unpacking society, that they really like dig into like what resonates, what doesn't, so that changes and self-reflection can start a little bit earlier than your 30s going.
Well, and I think it is. I think that Gloria's speech is going to be referenced quite a bit because what it boils down to is like, regardless of what you or I or Jenny thinks about that woman who has made that decision
Mhm.
to care for a child and not be a career woman, her life is the same
Mhm.
regardless, and so all those judgments do is reflect us.
Yeah.
So we have to like kind of unpack our judgments and decide, well, do these serve us in some way, and if not, what should?
Mhm.
Because that woman's life is not going to be any different because we judge her however we judge her, and that's the lesson we should take for ourselves too.
Yeah.
It's like, my life is not really going to change because someone else has made a judgment about me one way or the other. Like, I have to be okay with my choices myself,
Mhm.
and I am, like, because I kind of had a somewhat similar experience that I grew up with the brainy kid, like I didn't really date in high school or anything like that. And I was just always like, I loved being alone, So like I was a very introverted, but like not shy. Like it's a weird thing because it's like I'm introverted, but I'm not necessarily shy. Like I was, like I always had friends and I would always go visit my friends, and some of my friends liked dolls and some didn't, so like I always had like different groups of friends, and I always had guy friends and I always had girlfriends, but like, and now that I'm older, like I'd say the ratio is about half and half, but like I always just wanted to relate to people kind of as much as the real me as I could,
Mhm.
even though like some people are just not going to be into that, like some people are just don't want, and it's just like, but like rather than that making me feel as any kind of way, like I just need to be like, okay, that's cool. Like, if I'm not your thing, that's not any judgment on you. Like, I'm not going to feel resentment towards you because you don't like me, because not everyone should like me, because not everyone has the same values as me, not everyone has the same interests as me. So like I just kind of had to get to that place where like I didn't even feel that initial twinge of resentment when someone didn't just automatically embrace me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like
You said something like interesting and just about, like how we need to do our own self-reflection and obviously like work on our judgment against other people, because it's not going to change that person's life, we'll say the homemaker's life. But I think it is, if society changes, because
Well,
like in
yeah.
my job, I get external validation occasionally. Like I'll get people when I'm doing my job. I will have either clients or other people just be like, hey, that was great. Really appreciate this. This is good. And you get some feedback on what you're doing. And I think part of the problem with the invisible labor like aspect of it is that there is no validation. There is no external validation. There is no coming home every single day and be like, oh my gosh, you cooked, you cleaned, you like picked up the kids, you packed their lunches, you did all of the laundry, you folded it. Like you made this an entire home. So we don't need to hire any external help. You did that while looking like as you do, and like just taking care of everyone. There's no everyday thanks for that. And I think sometimes like if we had the grace in society to like see, a homemaker out there, regardless of gender, just like looking like they're having a day of it or just doing great, I think it would be really cool if there was just a little bit more empathy and understanding from society to be like, give them like an atta girl.
Yeah. You're doing it. I remembered what it was that I had that revelation, and it was the is men a lamp debate. I don't know if you remember this, but like in the is men a lamp debate at WalkCon, I think it was Rebecca was talking about how like emotional labor isn't valued, and it was like that was me. I was in the audience going, whoa, that's me. Like we ignore this, and that like it was a revelation to me. I still landed on men's kind of a lamp this in the story, but realizing that this is something that as a society we largely put on the shoulders of women and then just say is nothing. Like it's not important that women bear the emotional burden generally of like not even just caring for the household, but making sure that everybody in the household feels safe and loved. And like that is generally a woman's role. And then it is completely ignored because that's a huge burden to ask of somebody. And
Well, the big problem with men to me is that, yeah, like if she was just an emotional support character, and if she was being compensated for that in some way, I think I would have less of an issue with it. But like she is treated so poorly by Rand, the person that she's given her entire life to, whether she would admit that or not. Like she doesn't have his whole heart or his whole attention. Like she is just doing all of this for him and being this self-sacrificing, you know, like martyr essentially, because
I think if we were given more of a clear picture of like the difference between when Min was present and when she wasn't, and I think the reason it falls flat for me and why it doesn't, like I hear the argument and I hope the show brings that argument forward and digs into that, but as the reader you don't see that, like even the emotional labor work, because you don't see the payoff of it. So it's labor, but usually labor even has this, like there, like without her doing the labor there should be repercussions.
Like I mean
we don't see those.
This is not a discussion, but like I did end up in my mind voting. I don't know if we have a vote. I still voted Min as a lamp, largely because I don't think that the story gives her the credit. Like I don't think Robert Jordan gives her the credit for that. He put her in that role and I think we infer it, but I don't think the story gives her that credit. And I because of that, I ended up voting for that. But it also was like that to me. I remember the feeling in the audience being like, that's not something I ever think about. Like emotional labor is not something I ever think about. And that's me. Like I need to think about this. Yeah.
I mean, I think about it a lot because of the resistance that men have to going to counseling. And so again, like in the context of how I see how my professional world plays out is at the breakdown of a relationship. They often say that like depending, but like women can often move forward a little bit easier because they're able to process it typically with a counselor and typically with friends who they speak to about this stuff. Whereas with men, they're not going to call up their guy friends and vent for hours about how sad they are. They're not going to pay a professional counselor. And so who gets the burden of that? Their doctor that they may check in with occasionally and their lawyer who they have to pay to listen to them. An absurd amount of money. Absurd amount of money that's not covered by insurance benefits.
Go to therapy. Oh my goodness.
Go to therapy. And so I've had that conversation so many times just to say, please go to therapy. But there's this built-in resistance to being vulnerable. Like it's something bad. And like I think it's almost unconscious sometimes when I like people unload on me and they start talking about all of these things and all of these feelings. And I'm like, I hear what you're saying, but like your girl's got a minor in psychology from like far too long ago now. Like I am not equipped to deal with all of this and unpack it for you. And also you are paying me so much more than you should, instead of just like admitting that maybe you would be helpful to process this in a forum that's designed to help you like talk.
But that's the byproduct of patriarchy too.
It totally is. And that's why I hope like shows like Shrinking take off and like really resonate like with men especially. I hope people like think that it's okay to go and like talk about these things and be vulnerable and like feel and talk about it and talk about the struggles of honestly carrying these societal expectations for men, because they're just as hard.
Oh, they are.
They're just as impossible.
Yeah, it's like statistically speaking, men are happier when they're in relationships, like when they're married, and statistically speaking, women are less happy. And like the reason I don't know, I haven't done all of the reading on this, but I would imagine one of the reasons for that is that men in relationships, especially in heterosexual relationships, they feel comfortable unburdening themselves to their wives and you know,
and their purpose is being fulfilled. They are supposed to be a provider. They are supposed to like they are supposed to take care of people financially. So when they're in a relationship, they are meeting their societal obligation of like, I am providing for someone. I provide for my like partner and my children, and I do like the lawn work and I do all of this stuff. So it does fulfill like that need that I think society like unfairly and unjustly puts on men. Because like who decided that they should, have to be so tough and not feel and like and that tears are seen as weakness. Like there's just so much to it. And like getting onto that, like the fact that we had Allan in Barbie as just like this standout star of a human.
Yes.
Could not love Allan more.
Oh, Allan is fantastic.
Allan's awesome.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite character.
Do you
and
have
Allan? Yes, I have Allan dolls.
Okay.
I don't have any close at hand, but yeah, I do have Allan.
How many rooms do you have of Barbie?
I have 2 rooms, but like, this room, like there's a lot of
Barbie in this room. Yeah.
Like it goes and goes and goes and goes.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is amazing.
Yeah. So like, and like the Allan dolls, like I have some 60s dolls. Like this room is only my 60s, 70s, and up to 1987 dolls. All of my later dolls are in my other doll room.
I love that you have them organized by date. That like when I was when I had like a record collection, because I jumped from records right to CDs. I skipped cassettes altogether, but my records were organized by year of release. So I could like reach in and be like, I know exactly. Like, yeah, I don't have a record collection anymore. Yeah,
is 1978 through 1983 dolls, clothing, play sets.
Wow.
Like I wanted it to look like a Sears wish book from 1983 died in here.
God.
So yeah, like that was the effect I was going for. And of course, like all of these dolls have been like meticulously cleaned and styled and all of it, because I love that kind of crafty stuff.
Yeah.
And I just love the aesthetic. Like I think that's why I became a graphic designer, is because I just love the look of things. And like growing up, like I didn't have body image issues because of Barbie, because that wasn't really talked about as much back then. It was just, wow, that's really pretty. And I get to explore all of this cool fashion stuff without it having to be on me. You know what I mean?
Right.
I wasn't like, I was never interested in myself being fashionable. I was just like, I'm just going to wear whatever because I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
But I love fashion and I love it on the dolls.
That's cool.
You know what I mean?
I never would have thought of that. And I can't,
Yeah,
I'm just going to, because you mentioned being a graphic designer, I'm going to do something that I always forget to do. You designed my logo. Any of my merch, anything is designed by Siansonae, and I have links to it in the description. I always forget to plug that I actually have merch. Yeah.
I always forget about it.
Me too. But yeah, this is designed by Siansonae. Anything, like, you're really good at this stuff. So,
Well, like all of these like cars and things, like I have meticulously clean, like I replaced all these labels with like custom printed new labels, like this thing here, like all new, like decals and everything. Like, yeah, but to me, that's just so much fun to like take something that should go into a landfill and turn it into like a beautiful display piece that looks like it's brand new.
Yeah.
Like I just love that kind of stuff. I did the same with this house. All these dolls. Well, some of them were perfect when I got them, but like most of them needed some work.
Right.
And I just, I just love that.
Okay.
That is so cool.
It is. The next question I have, I guess I want to talk about Ken and Allan. I guess we could talk about both of them, but
always talk about Allan.
Of course. Allan is essential. But what are your thoughts on Ken and his story in the movie? His very important job of Beach.
Sublime.
Sublime. Okay. Yes.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think Ken is on an earlier step of the same path Barbie is on. Like
yeah.
And like he is not having an existential crisis because he has an existential crisis built into himself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he only has a good day if Barbie looks at him. You know what I mean? because the idea of Ken was created as a partner to Barbie, but Barbie was not created as a partner to Ken. Barbie is complete,
Yes.
whether Ken is there or not.
Mm-hmm.
So Barbie's story is, like, what is my meaning? What is my purpose? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Whereas with Ken, it's like, this is my meaning. This is my purpose, but I have to unlearn this now,
Yeah.
and then he has to realize, oh, wait, I am my own person. And then he gets to be in the same spot where Barbie was at the beginning, where it's like, oh, I can just be and be enough. And like, I don't have to define myself through my relationship to someone else.
Yeah.
But he is still an idea, and he still exists in Barbie land.
Of course, yeah.
So he still needs to take that next step that she took to become a fully actualized real person. You know what I mean? And I think if they do a sequel, that's the natural progression of things. It's like, well, now Ken kind of has to have that same step forward in consciousness, like the monolith from 2001. I love all of the the imagery, because like 2001 Space Odyssey is my favorite movie, bar none, of all time. And so like when they did that first teaser, I was like, they made this movie for me. I'm living in a simulation. This is too weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like it was just too perfect. But like, and I think that he needs to touch the monolith now and take his next step and become a full person. And then maybe, because like now Barbie is a person and she's going to the gynecologist, now she can explore falling in love if she wants to or not, and same for Ken. Like once he becomes a real person, then his feelings will be meaningful. Like they won't just be his base programming exerting itself.
Yeah. I didn't.
That's my thought.
I didn't actually think of him as like you're saying this, and it's what we were talking about before about having to unlearn the internalized misogyny that we all grow up. He's having to unlearn. Like that's what he's having to do, is unlearn that his purpose, like in his mind, his purpose is to be there for Barbie. Like his purpose is to be Barbie's boy. I didn't mean to alliterate it that way. He's Barbie's like, boy.
It's Barbie and Ken. There's no just Ken.
Be best boy.
Yeah. That's like that, but that's in his mind.
Best boy. Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, why does nobody ever say that instead of best girl?
But, because it doesn't ring the same way.
No. Even though it's alliterated and it should. But yeah, like the fact that he's having to unlearn that, and like that as women, we go through our lives, especially women who want to not be constrained by the patriarchy, we go through our lives having to unlearn the things that the patriarchy has taught us. So, yeah. How about you, Delusions?
Ryan Gosling was perfection.
Totally.
Watching him in interviews, it's so clear that he understood the assignment in such a way that he brought such depth to it, right? Like we see ourselves in Ken. Many people do, and it is because, I mean, we see Ken through the female gaze in this movie, and it is like a very intentional mirror being held up to the audience and asking the question, right? Like, is this it? Because, I mean, in our society, like we see the question that's always asked is like, how do these older men who are in their like 60s have like, or, late 40s have girlfriends in their 20s. Leonardo DiCaprio has like, the cutoff of 25. And why is that? And it's because a woman basically becomes an accessory to them as a man. And it's so rare that it happens in society the other way that like it's always commented on, right? Like Demi Moore, how off like her and Ashton Kutcher shattered like the world. Olivia Wilde and Harry Styles, it was a 9-year age gap, and like the tabloids could not get enough. And it's still so present and like constant, and like I'm sure they didn't feel like they were able to live their lives and stuff, but it's not so much about like how it impacts you. It's just like the constant editorializing from society about these things. And I thought Ken was just wonderful to
Mhm.
ask us to really consider that, because you know he was played by like Ryan Gosling,
Yeah.
who's a guy's guy. Who doesn't love Ryan Gosling? He can do anything.
Mm.
And so I thought it was a great acting choice. I'm so happy Margot Robbie pushed for that and got him involved in the project.
I didn't know that.
And I'm so happy he bought in. Yeah, Margot Robbie said she would give him a gift every day if he did this, and she like
Aw.
committed to that. So she
Mm.
gave him a gift every day that he was there on set.
I didn't know that. That's wonderful.
It's very cute. Like their relationship is amazing. But like this is someone who has played like some pretty heavy male roles, and now he's coming in and he is playing the role of being a handbag.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, when I think about it and like thinking about going, like, the number of times I'm going to watch this movie over, I think every time I see it, I'm going to get a little bit more. I don't think I can ever quite get enough of Ken, because I just like, even watching his transformation, even watching the way, like when he's in his Mojo Dojo Casa house. Even that, and like even the way he's still, his value is still so contingent on how Barbie views him.
Yeah.
And getting the respect, getting Barbie, like everything about Ken is defined by
Sublime.
Barbie. Sublime.
Yes.
I just, I really think that's in terms of what stuck with me is it's really Ken, and it's really what Greta was asking us to consider in Ken, and how as Ken goes through his journey, maybe that's something that we should also all kind of be going on, right? Like how do I define myself? When people stay in relationships, like why do they stay in those relationships? And is it because you don't want to be that divorcee at 33, or like what will society think, and like you can't keep a man, or like what if there's just so much behind every part of what we do and think and feel and internalize. And I love that Ken was there, and then I love that Allan was there, exactly as like Allan was just doing him.
Yeah.
Allan could not be more authentic. I loved it, because I was like, this is what not just a man should be, but this is what a person should be. Just that level of like doing it for himself.
Yeah.
In my headcanon, Allan goes back and forth between Barbie Land and the real world all the time, and has since 1964 when he was created. Like, because like he is one of the most like actualized characters in Barbie Land.
Yeah.
Like,
because
me,
no one
like,
has expectations of him.
Yeah.
He's just
and
allowed to
and
be.
other people's expectations are a trap that we should all reject.
Yeah.
And we should embrace just the things that we love. Like, even if they're silly little toys, like it's okay. You know, like just love the stuff that you love, be the person that you are. And the people that appreciate that about you will appreciate that about you. And the people that don't won't.
Yeah.
But stop trying to manage that process. Like stop, like trying to like get ahead of that. And like, well, I can't be this person who's not in a relationship, because then what would people think? It's like, why should that matter?
Yeah.
In a world of Barbie and Kens, be an
Allan.
Be an Allan. Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I also really enjoyed about the movie was just some of the silliness. Like, this isn't really deep, but I loved the musical numbers. I loved the music.
I
loved the musical choices. Like, every time they burst into Closer I Am to Find, it's like, oh, this is a gay movie now. And it's like, they're all
and I love their little dance number, like at the beginning.
Everything was great.
Even choosing Push.
I was going to say choosing Push was so good.
That was hilarious.
Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Perfection. I love, it was so fun. Like, it was the joy that I felt watching it.
Yeah.
Was something I didn't expect. So I knew that I knew that it was going to be a little bit wink wink. I knew that it was going to be like some self-effacing humor. I knew that it was going to go after Barbie. I knew that we were going to get some of like the references to older Barbies. Was like the skipper. Like, I love that they threw all of that stuff in. But yeah, for me it was the
Sugar
joy
Daddy Barbie. Sugar Daddy.
Sugar's daddy.
No.
They
I'm
never
not-
actually made that doll, by the way.
Oh, really?
Like
Oh.
that doll never actually got made. And that,
I thought they
It-
showed it at the end and they said that it was like, it was.
no,
No.
that was something they made for that title sequence. They made one prototype doll and they announced that it was Sugar Daddy Ken. I remember this because I've been collecting dolls since, you know, the Pleistocene. But like, but like when they brought Sugar Daddy out as part of the Palm Beach Silkstone collection aimed at adult collectors, you know, like this doll would have cost like $100 and something. Like concerned moms, TM, had to come out of the woodwork and say how inappropriate it was that this Ken was a sugar daddy, and you know, like, and because of that pressure, Mattel caved and didn't produce the doll.
But it was an idea for like it was like
it was
a
an idea. We saw a photo,
Which is maybe why we saw it like a little bit higher up, like not fully realized. They were kind of looking down from like weird Barbie's house, right? Like that idea that was never fully formulated, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, and I always resented whenever like people who don't like Barbie get to dictate what Barbie is.
Right.
Like I've never appreciated that. Like people that got pissed off about the math class is tough thing. Like, you know, the same doll would be saying like, would you like to go to college and stuff like that? Like they never talked about any of the stuff that she said that was actually a positive message for girls. Just this idea that like, well, you might struggle in a class sometimes, you know, like, well, we can't have that message out there to girls, you know, like math class was tough. I don't know if it was for you guys, but for me it was.
No.
You know,
51% in grade 12 calculus is glaring at me right now.
I once got a 4% on a test. And I got this 4%, and about a month later, the teacher was walking down the aisle, and she sort of tapped me on the shoulder and leaned down and whispered, she goes, "Jenny, I was going over my records, and I wrote you down as having a 4. I think I must have written it down. Was it 40?" And I was like, "No,
for sure.
It was 4. It was 4. That was correct.
You got my name right.
You got it right. No, what it was, I had memorized a formula and I wrote the formula down right, but I didn't know how to implement it. And all of the rest of the questions, I had answered most of the questions just wrong. Calculus, there are imaginary numbers in calculus. What the fuck?
Yeah. I never got past algebra 2.
I
like once I got to algebra 2, I was like, nope, I'm out.
I remember my mom got me a tutor because this is back in like Ontario. I had to take OAC and I was told that I needed OAC to get into university. Turns out that wasn't true because I was not pursuing math. I didn't need an OAC math to get into university, but that was the only reason I was taking it. And I remember once telling my tutor, he was trying to explain to me imaginary numbers, and I was like, "Can I just imagine it's a 5? Can I please just imagine it's a 5?
Give me something."
Like, that would make it so much easier for me. So, no, the answer, it turns out, is no. You can't. That's not how it works. So, math is hard. Math is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah,
it is.
So,
And yeah, and people shouldn't be like made to feel bad because math doesn't come easy to them.
yeah.
Like if it does come easy to you, great.
Yeah.
I love that. But there are things that come easy to me that maybe other people would struggle with.
Yeah, my sister's a math genius. She's incredible.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
One of my best friends, Allison, is a math genius. And
So,
but we just don't share that.
No. You can't. You're not allowed to have traditionally feminine weaknesses because then you are an example of what, like, it's
But see, and like that's why patriarchy is a trap for everyone. It's
everyone.
And why we still have this idea that like it's not okay to be a stay-at-home mom when it absolutely should be. You know, like femininity is not bad. You know, like feminism doesn't mean you have to become a man. Like, and that's or that I have to, like, I obviously have not rejected femininity. You know what I mean? It's like and that's okay. Like you can be assertive, you can be strong-willed, you can be powerful, you can be self-directing, and you can like pink.
I had that a moment of like, oh, I'm the asshole moment when I was traveling with a friend of mine, and we were in, I think, where were we? Macau, I think, and she kept stopping to look for an eyelash curler because she had forgotten to bring one with her, and I was teasing her. I'm like, oh my God, we're on vacation. Why do you care? Blah, blah, blah. And I kept doing it until finally she goes, Jenny, it's important to me. And I was like, holy fuck. I'm being an asshole here. Because yeah, she just wants to look nice. It's important to her. It makes her feel comfortable in her skin. And I am being an asshole because in my mind, no, caring about makeup is, you're girly and girly is bad. No, it's not. Like it literally was a revelation that I had of just like, oh shit. That's me being misogynistic. I'm misogynistically bullying one of my friends right now.
Well, and I liked in the movie how even after stereotypical Barbie starts to have the realization that she needs to become a real person, she doesn't completely reject the femininity.
No.
She's still pretty. She's still putting on makeup, and her Birkenstocks are pink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like she didn't become a totally separate thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She didn't just reject the idea that like she couldn't still enjoy pretty dresses, you know, like if she wanted to.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's okay. That's allowed.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have whatever like cocktail of masculinity, femininity, whatever.
Yes.
That works for you.
Be an Allan. Don't let everybody just dictate what you have to be. Be Allan.
Yeah. Be an Allan.
Yeah. Oh.
Like rock that pink jumpsuit, Allan.
Oh,
yes.
harder, please.
Yes.
Yeah. We need
I will say,
a doll of Allan in the pink jumpsuit. We just need that.
Yeah.
one thing I've really loved about the Barbie and just like again the joy that it brought like into the film, but then even like on TikTok, I get such a kick out of like men loving the movie and men embracing the movie. Like I saw this one where there were two guys talking and they were both pretending like they were going to see Oppenheimer, but they were going to go see it together. And then one of the guys, all you see is like, you know, chest up, and he's wearing this pink shirt. And at the end it cuts away and he's wearing just like a full pink dress.
Oh.
That like goes down to like mid thigh.
Yeah.
And it like caught me so unaware. And I just like, I loved it. I love the joy and like the fun that people are having with this. I love men coming to Barbie and being like, this is such a great film. And I love hearing why they relate to it and what they love about it so much, because I think it is like, you know, we've talked so much about feminism. Feminism gets a bad rap and like headlines are hilarious. Feminism is just called that because that's what it needed to be called, because how lame would it be to be like equality constantly? Like it needs a name. It needs to understand like there needs to be a driving force behind it. And this was basically to say like, we're not equal. It's what we want. That like that's all, feminism is the pursuit of equality, and it's really amazing and awesome to see so many men falling into that and understanding that the patriarchy isn't working for them either, and rejecting those principles and you know, finding their inner Barbie and just like rolling with it. The continued joy that this movie has brought almost a month after its release is really awesome.
Yeah.
Well, both times I saw the movie, I went with a male friend and he loved it too.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
So,
yeah, I wish I could get some of my friends here to go with me. Anyway.
Yeah.
It really
I'm
I
excited
think
for
it's
my
for
dad
everyone.
to see it.
Yeah.
He's waiting for it to come out on like streaming, but I'm really like I kind of want to watch it with my dad for the first time, and I think he's gonna get a lot out of it.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, this has been going for an hour and a half. So I guess I will ask, do you have any final thoughts or anything like I didn't ask that you wanted to say and I didn't draw it out of you?
I liked the kind of like parallels to the biblical story of the Garden of Eden, kind of.
Oh.
But I liked that it was a little bit of a twist, because like Barbie is both Adam and Eve in this scenario, and Ken is both Adam and Eve in this scenario. But like importantly, Barbie essentially, when she goes to the real world, she's kind of like partaking of the tree of knowledge.
Right. Yeah.
You know? But she gets to go back to the Garden of Eden and decide for herself if she wants to leave the garden and become a human, become mortal, become more than just an idea, and no longer live forever. Like, she gets to make that choice as an informed choice rather than as coercion / entrapment.
Yeah.
So, like, I liked that aspect of it.
I never even thought of that aspect. My mom would be mad at me not picking up biblical parallels. Anyway. How about you?
Yeah, one thing that like I'm still thinking about, and that we didn't really touch on, because I don't think a lot needs to be said about it. We kind of all understand how this works in the real world. Can being this idea of like under the female gaze, one thing that we don't see Ken experience in Barbie land is fear of harm or physical threat from Barbie. And that is one of the first things that
she experiences,
that our stereotypical Barbie experiences, is going into the real world and seeing all of these eyes on her body, on her person, and feeling this looming sense of fear and danger. I thought it was a really poignant comment in the film, and something that I don't know if Greta Gerwig was intending it to be, but that men probably will never really, even in their Kenest moments, will never truly be able to experience or understand, because it's a really, really big like constant sense of dread. And it's difficult to capture in a sense. And I just thought that having kind of a throwaway comment about it was powerful.
I think it was absolutely intentional on like I don't think there was anything in this movie that wasn't like a 4-hour discussion between Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. Like, that like they had very intense conversations about like, we need to capture this experience somehow, even if it's just one line of like what this feels like and how empowered and unafraid Ken felt in that same moment, because like the world of Barbie land, like it's a fantasy, it's a reflection, and it's a child's idea of what adult life is like.
Right.
So there's no sexuality, there's no danger, there's no like, they're making like kind of like cheeky innuendos, but like they don't know they're doing it. It's a completely innocent, completely safe, like no one's ever going to be hurt in this world, but also no one's ever going to grow beyond a certain point in this world. So like for Barbie to come into our world, even knowing what that danger is, like that takes bravery. Like, she's opening herself up to so much that like could harm her. And she's literally like accepting death, like she's irrepressible thoughts of death, Barbie, but she has to accept the reality of death when she takes her first breath.
And then just kind of like building on that too, in the theme of her, like, so I was like, that hit so strongly. And then at the end of that sequence, when she sees the older woman sitting at the bus stop and she just looks at her and she says like, "You're beautiful." The way I started crying, and I have no words to explain it, but like that was one thing that got me. It was just, and maybe it was the way she delivered it, but it was so sincere, so genuine, and just like, I think it was tears of joy. I don't really know. It hit me in a great way, and it really moved me. And there were so many small moments like that, but those two really stand out in particular, of small kind of moments throughout the film.
I'm wondering now, like, is there anything, because like I'm glad they didn't make it just like a bunch of references, because like I would have gotten all of the in jokes,
of course,
and they didn't make everything like a 1-for-1 of like, oh, that's like all of the clothes that the dolls were wearing, like were not like clothes from like the clothing designers actually intentionally made new outfits just based on the aesthetic and whatnot. Like, and it wasn't just like spot the Easter eggs and memes.
Right.
Like, it wasn't made just for me, it was made for like
general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that. Like, it wasn't just too inside baseball in Barbie Land.
I think the feeling I came away with the movie, came away from the movie feeling is of being seen in a way that I would not have expected from a movie about a toy that I didn't really want to play with. Like when I was a kid, the movie, like it felt like it was even the things that weren't saying, like I'm not a parent, so talking about things with children is not like, that's not personal to me, and yet the expression of the unfairness of what we are expected to be versus what we are expected to let other people engage with and see, like what we're talking about with other people's perceptions of us, the unfair, like the fact that was articulated in such a poignant way, but like a very real and accessible way. I felt seen in a way that I did not expect. And it was a very good feeling to be like, oh, like it's a feeling of knowing I'm not alone. Like I'm not the only person who feels this. I'm like, we all are okay. Everybody's going through this. And it makes, like it created a feeling of community, weirdly. I don't know if that makes any sense, but.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And what I appreciated about it is like, it was a movie about like things that are serious, but it was still fun.
Yeah.
And it was still a romp, because like, this is the culmination of like 40 plus years of collecting dolls.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's ridiculous, but like, I have embraced that my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
But like, just the idea that like something as, essentially shallow as all of this was treated with respect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I appreciate it, because like my whole life, people have always just kind of thought this is ridiculous. And it's like, and to them it is like, but to me, like, this has always been tremendously meaningful, and it's always given me a lot of joy, and so like both of those things can be true. And both of those things can be valid. And like, I just appreciated that they didn't make it like they kept the silliness, they kept the fun, but they also made it meaningful, and they made it have depth, and they made it say something important. Like I really was amazed that they were able to do that.
Yeah. I guess with that, I that is a good place to end this. Thank you both so much for being willing to have this conversation recorded. Like literally, I came away from the movie and the first thing I did was like go into, Chance, did you see it? I want to know what you think. And then I was like, wait, no, don't talk about it now. We'll talk about it on camera.
Hold that thought.
Yes. So I appreciate both of you for being willing to have this conversation in front of all of the internet. So, yay.
Hi,
Anytime.
internet.
Thanks for having us.
Yes. All right.
Awesome.
I'm glad Greta Gerwig gave us this movie to talk about, and hopefully there will be many, many more like it, so we can keep having these conversations.
Yes.
Self-examinations and societal reflections.
Yeah.
Totally.
Absolutely. All right. So, yeah, that was that conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. Have you seen the Barbie movie? What did you think about it? Did it bring up any emotions? Did you cry in the theater? What did you think of that speech of Gloria's? Let me know your thoughts about the Barbie movie, and I guess about our conversation in the comments below. And if you like my content and you want to support me, I do have a Patreon that is also linked in the description below. My patrons, as I say every single time, I'm so grateful for you. Your support truly means the world to me. It really, really does. Thank you. And with that, I am going to end this here. So please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.